In a hard-water terrace in Salford, or a back-to-back in Sheffield, a clean house cost under a shilling a week, and not one of the women running those houses thought that was remarkable. Your nan kept a bar of Sunlight soap, a box of bicarbonate, and a few things under the sink. And she knew exactly what each one could do. That scullery got scrubbed from top to bottom with methods she'd never had cause to question, because they worked. One of those methods was tested, documented, and formally recommended by the Women's Institute throughout the 1950s, and most of us have not heard of it since. The cleaning industry prefers it that way. 20 methods your grandmother used and quietly stopped being sold. Let's go through them. Number 20. Newspaper and vinegar window polish. Take a page of yesterday's newspaper, the broadsheet size if you can find it, scrunch it into a loose ball, dampen it with a splash of white vinegar, and work it across the glass in firm, overlapping circles. That is the entire method. What makes it work is the combination. The carbon black in newsprint ink acts as an extremely fine abrasive, fine enough to lift grease and dried watermarks without leaving a scratch. The acetic acid in the vinegar cuts through the greasy film that builds up on glass from cooking vapor and fingerprints. And unlike cloth, newspaper leaves no lint at all. The National Federation of Window Cleaners noted in the early 1960s that newsprint had been used by professional cleaners since the trade began. Modern microfiber cloths, sold in multi-packs for £8, harbor bacteria in the fibers after 3 or 4 uses unless you boil wash them at 90 degrees. A sheet of newspaper costs nothing and goes in the bin. The result is not comparable. The newspaper wins. This wasn't making do. This was a streak-free method that professional window cleaners still use today, quietly, when no one's watching. Number 19. Salt scrub on cast iron. Pour a good handful of coarse salt into the pan, the kind that used to come in stiff paper bags from the ironmonger. Add a small splash of cooking oil, take a folded piece of brown paper or an old cloth, and scrub in firm circles around the base and up the sides. Tip out the salt and wipe clean with a dry cloth. No water. Never water on cast iron without immediately drying and oiling afterwards. And absolutely never soap. Soap strips the seasoning that took years of use to build up, and once gone, it takes years again to restore. The salt is the ideal abrasive, hard enough to shift burnt food, fine enough not to cut the surface. The oil reseals the iron as you work, so you are cleaning and conditioning at the same time. One action that completes 2 tasks. Modern cast iron manufacturers now sell chainmail scrubbers at £15 specifically for cleaning pans they advise you not to wash with soap. Your nan did this with 2pence worth of salt and her pans lasted 40 years. The arithmetic has not changed. Number 18. Bicarbonate of soda down the drain. Every Friday evening, or whenever the working week ended, half a cup of bicarbonate poured down the kitchen plug hole, followed by a full kettle of boiling water, then left overnight without running the tap. The bicarb breaks down the fatty acids in cooking grease before they can cool and solidify on the pipe walls. The boiling water flushes the broken down residue through completely. Done once a week without fail, a drain simply did not block. There was nothing to block with. A blocked drain in 1953 meant 15 shillings for a plumber and a full day of disruption. In a household running on a tight budget, prevention was not a preference. It was plain economics. The bicarbonate cost less than a penny a week. Drain clearing companies now charge upwards of £80 an hour to clear pipes that were never maintained. This wasn't a home remedy passed down by superstition. It was a maintenance schedule, and we abandoned it the moment we decided that curing the problem was easier than preventing it. Number 17. Sour milk for cloudy glass. The end of the milk bottle that had started to turn, the milk that couldn't go in tea, poured into a cloudy decanter or glass vase, swirled gently, left for 10 minutes, and rinsed clean with cold water. The lactic acid produced as milk sours dissolves calcium carbonate deposits, limescale, that form wherever hard water sits and evaporates. That white ring inside a vase at the waterline, the milky film inside a carafe that refuses to shift however long you soak it, lactic acid reaches it where nothing else will. Swirling brings fresh acid into contact with the surface, and the cloudiness clears completely. Every glass in the sideboard was kept brilliant this way. And the sour milk that would have been tipped down the sink still had another week of usefulness left in it. This wasn't desperation. This was the habit of understanding what a thing could still do before deciding it was finished. Modern specialist glass restoring products sell for £4 and upwards in kitchen shops. They contain dilute acid. The same principle. 40 times the price. Number 16. Cold tea on wood floors. The last of the pot at the end of the day, strong, black, properly cold, wrung tightly in a cloth and used to mop bare wooden floorboards. Not saturated, just damp. Worked along the grain and left to dry naturally. The tannic acid in tea is a natural wood conditioner. It penetrates the grain, feeds the fibers, and slightly alters the surface chemistry in a way that repels dust rather than attracting it. Furniture restorers have understood this for generations. Floor refinishing companies prefer that you don't. A pot of tea costs almost nothing. The floors in working-class homes kept this way for 30 years came up better than the floors in wealthier homes treated with commercial wax applied repeatedly, which built up into cloudy layers over the years and eventually turned yellow at the edges. This wasn't the poor woman's substitute for floor polish. It was better than floor polish. That distinction matters, and it was a distinction your nan didn't need to be told. She could see it herself. Number 15, lemon half on brass fittings. The spent lemon half, already squeezed for the pudding or the morning hot water, dipped into a small mound of table salt and rubbed directly onto brass door handles, tap fittings, or the fire irons. Worked in small circles, left for a minute, then rinsed and dried with a cloth. Citric acid dissolves copper oxide. That dark, dull tarnish on brass is copper oxide forming at the surface as the metal reacts with air. The citric acid in the lemon breaks that compound down and lifts it away. The salt adds just enough mild abrasion to work the clean metal free underneath. Together they restore bright gold in under a minute on light tarnish. Brasso appeared commercially in 1905 and became the standard household product. It contains petroleum distillate and ammonia. It works, but it produces fumes and it costs money to replace when the tin is gone. The spent lemon costs nothing, having already done its first job, and leaves no fumes in the kitchen. The choice between them was never about which worked better. It was about which one had the advertising budget. Number 14, bread crust as a wallpaper eraser. 2-day-old bread crust. Not fresh, not moldy, exactly 2 days old when the outside has just hardened without becoming brittle, rubbed gently across wallpaper in one direction only to lift fingerprints, pencil marks, and soot deposits from the surface. The dried crust acts as a very gentle eraser. It has enough texture to lift surface dirt from the paper without introducing the moisture that would cause it to bubble or the dyes to bleed. The direction matters, always in one direction, never back and forth. The mark comes away cleanly and the paper is undamaged. This method was tested and recommended by the Women's Institute in their household management guides throughout the 1950s, which is why it was mentioned at the very start. It also works on oil painting surfaces and fabric lampshades by the same principle. Modern wallpaper cleaning sprays, at £4 a bottle, frequently cause the bubbling and color transfer they are sold to prevent. They introduce moisture where none should go. The bread crust introduces nothing, it only takes away. Number 13, eggshells to clean narrow-necked bottles. Crushed eggshells, saved in a bowl on the windowsill over the course of the week, dropped into a narrow-necked bottle or decanter with a small amount of hot, soapy water. The bottle shaken hard for 30 seconds, rinsed clean. The eggshell fragments act as a scouring agent that reaches every interior surface of a vessel that no brush can enter. They remove limescale rings, wine staining, and the dark deposit inside a vase at the waterline that soaking for days alone never touches. When you rinse, the fragments pass down the drain without blocking it. Nothing was wasted. The shells went into the bottle before they went into the compost. That understanding that something still has one more use before it is truly finished was not an occasional trick. It was a principle applied consistently across every part of how that household worked. What left the kitchen had been used completely first. We now buy bottle cleaning tablets for £2 a pack. They do the same job. They also have to be ordered, stored, and replaced. Number 12, potato water starch for collars and linens. The cloudy water left in the pan after boiling potatoes, saved in a jug, cooled to room temperature, used to stiffen shirt collars, table linens, and the antimacassars on the backs of armchairs before pressing with a hot iron. The dissolved starch from the potato penetrates fabric fibers as the cloth is dipped and the excess squeezed out. As the fabric dries, the starch sets around those fibers and holds a sharp crease through a full day's wear. Iron while still slightly damp, and the result is identical to commercial liquid starch from a bottle. Commercial laundry starch cost sixpence a box in 1952. A box a month for a household with working men who needed pressed collars added up to 3 shillings and sixpence a year. Potato water cost nothing and was produced every time potatoes were boiled, which in a household feeding 4 or 5 people was most evenings of the week. The starch was a byproduct of supper. Using it cost nothing, not even the effort of buying it. 12 items in, and every single one has drawn from what was already in the kitchen. Newspaper, salt, bicarbonate, sour milk, cold tea, spent lemon, 2-day-old bread, eggshells, potato water. The cleaning cupboard was minimal, not because there was no money, but because these women understood what things could still do before they left the kitchen. The next 8 follow the same logic, and one of them has not been improved upon in 70 years of trying. Number 11, diluted vinegar for stone and tile floors. 1 part white malt vinegar to 10 parts cold water, used to mop stone flags, slate, or quarry tile floors, then left to dry without rinsing. The mild acidity of the diluted vinegar breaks down the alkaline deposits left by hard water, the grey, dulling film that appears on stone and quarry tile in hard water areas like the Yorkshire Dales, the Black Country, and the Midlands coalfield. It also lifts the soap residue left behind by previous cleaning products, which builds up invisibly and makes surfaces look flat and tired. After mopping and drying, the stone sits in its own color again, deep terracotta, blue slate, earthy brown. A 1958 survey of council house maintenance in Sheffield noted that floors mopped with vinegar water showed significantly less calcium deposit than those cleaned with commercial products over a 10-year period. Modern specialist stone floor cleaners sell at 8 to 12 pounds a litre. Diluted white vinegar in a bucket at pennies per mop does what they charge 12 pounds to approximate. Number 10. Raw onion for rust on metal tools. Cut a raw onion in half and rub the cut face directly and firmly across rusted metal. Garden tools, kitchen knives, the hinges on the coal scuttle, the blade of a saw stored in the shed. Leave for 5 minutes. Wipe off with a dry cloth and inspect. The sulfur compounds in raw onion react with iron oxide, rust, and begin to break down the bond between the corrosion and the metal surface beneath it. The juice draws up into the rusted layer and loosens it from the base metal. A moderately rusted surface clears enough to use in a single application. Badly rusted metal responds to 2 or 3 applied over successive days. Oral histories recorded by the Beamish Living Museum in County Durham note women cleaning garden tools this way consistently before winter storage in the shed. The tools lasted longer. WD-40, the modern equivalent, appeared in 1953 and became a household name within a decade. A can costs £4 and runs out. An onion costs pennies and is already in the kitchen. Number 9. Soot and fat blacking for the kitchen range. Soot scraped carefully from the back of the chimney flue, rubbed together with a small amount of lard or saved bacon fat to form a thick black paste, applied with a stiff brush to the iron surface of the kitchen range, left to set hard, then buffed to a flat black finish with a clean dry cloth. The fat carries the fine carbon particles down into the surface pores of the cast iron, sealing them against moisture and filling the early stages of surface corrosion before it can spread. The result is a deep flat black that absorbs heat efficiently and holds against damp. The range kept its appearance and its resistance for years between treatments. Boot black, the precursor to commercial polish, worked on the same principle, but for the range itself the soot was local, free, and produced by the same fire that heated the house through winter. Every ingredient came from inside the house. Nothing needed to be bought, ordered, or stored separately. This wasn't resourcefulness born of poverty, it was a closed system that wasted nothing. Number 8. Damp used tea leaves on carpets. Used tea leaves from the morning pot, still damp from the brew, not dripping wet, scattered lightly across the carpet in the front room, left to sit for 20 minutes, then swept up with a stiff bristled brush worked against the pile. The damp leaves attract and bind dust particles so they sweep up cleanly rather than rising into the air and resettling across every surface in the room. They absorb odors as they sit, cigarette smoke, cooking smells, the general closeness of a house full of people living at close quarters. They leave the carpet pile sitting slightly more upright, and the color comes up noticeably darker and more vivid. Carpet freshening powders sold at £3 a tin work on the same principle of surface absorption. The tea leaves arrived in this morning's pot and cost nothing additional. The only difference between those two options was whether you tipped the leaves onto the carpet before you emptied the strainer into the bin. Your mum didn't need a product. She needed to remember the strainer. 8 items to go. And here is what has emerged across this list. Every single method is a closed loop. The tea leaves cleaned the carpet before they reached the compost. The eggshells cleaned the bottles. The potato water stiffened the collars. Each thing had at least one more use before it was truly finished. That is not frugality. That is a different way of thinking about what something still is. The last 8 might show how far that thinking went. Number 7. Raw onion to lift burnt-on pan residue. This is the one mentioned at the very beginning. Fill the burnt pan with cold water, place half a raw onion cut side down flat on the base, bring the whole thing to a rolling boil, and then simmer for 15 minutes. Watch the burnt residue loosen from the metal and float to the surface. The sulfur compounds released when onion heats in water at boiling temperature break down the bonds between the carbonized food deposits and the pan metal itself. What soaking for a full night does not shift, and what 20 minutes of scrubbing with a wire pad barely touches. The onion dissolves while you walk away and do something else. No abrasive required, no chemical soak, no elbow grease at all. This was not the last resort when everything else had failed. This was the first response to a badly burnt pan. The only reason it has been forgotten is straightforward. Nobody put it in a bottle, gave it a brand name, and placed it at eye level on a supermarket shelf. The method survived in kitchens, but not in shops. And we started shopping for answers. Number 6. Beeswax furniture polish made at home. A block of beeswax from the market or the hardware shop, melted gently in an old tin set into a pan of hot water, combined with a small amount of pure turpentine, and stirred as it cooled into a soft, spreadable paste. Applied very thinly with a soft cloth, left for a full hour to harden, then buffed to a deep, warm shine with a clean, dry cloth. The beeswax fills fine surface scratches in wood and seals the grain against moisture without building up into the sticky, thick layers that commercial aerosol polish leaves after years of repeated application. The smell, warm honey, clean timber, a trace of turpentine, was the smell of a well-kept home on a Saturday morning in winter. A block of beeswax at the market in 1952 cost threepence. Mixed correctly, one block polished every wooden surface in the house for 12 months. The aerosol tin of commercial spray polish that eventually replaced it cost more, ran out in 2 months, and left a silicone-based film that attracted fingerprints within the hour. That trade was not an upgrade, it was a sale. Number 5. Flour and water wallpaper paste. Plain white flour stirred cold into water until smooth, then heated on the stove with additional water added gradually, stirred without stopping until it thickened to the consistency of double cream. Used as wallpaper paste, worked into fine plaster cracks as a filler, and when fully dried, applied as a size coat on bare walls before fresh paper or paint was hung. It bonds using starch adhesion chemistry, the same mechanism as any starch-based commercial wallpaper paste. It dries hard without shrinking and does not yellow over time. A full room could be wallpapered for the cost of a cup of flour, and if a seam lifted weeks later, the paste could be re-wetted with a damp cloth and pressed back into place without leaving a mark or a shadow on the pattern. Commercial wallpaper paste appeared in the 1950s. It used the same chemistry with added fungicide to slow mold in damp conditions. In a clean, dry house being repapered every 10 years, those additions were never necessary. What was necessary was flour, water, a pan, and patience. 3 of those 4 cost nothing. Number 4. Newspaper laid under rugs as insulation. Newspaper, 3 or 4 sheets laid flat and overlapping, spread evenly across the floor before a rug or carpet was placed over it and smoothed down. Invisible from above, apparently doing nothing. Air trapped between sheets of paper does not conduct heat. Trapped still air is one of the most effective natural insulators that exists. The same principle that makes cavity wall insulation work, that makes double glazing work, that makes the padded synthetic jackets sold for £120 from outdoor equipment shops work. Multiple thin layers with still air between them. The newspaper creates those layers for nothing at all because it arrived that morning with the post. In a stone-floored council house or a back-to-back terrace with a single coal fire in the front room, a cold floor draws warmth out of the air above it. Newspaper under the rug raised the felt warmth of the whole room noticeably. Modern thermal survey consultants charge £200 to assess a house and identify heat loss from the floor. The solution was already there, being read over breakfast. Number 3. Sugar soap for walls and paintwork before decorating. Sugar soap, originally sold as a compressed block, later as a dissolving powder, mixed into a bucket of hot water and used to scrub walls, paintwork, skirting boards, and window frames before any decorating was done and whenever grease or grime had built up visibly between decorating. The mildly alkaline solution cuts through nicotine staining, cooking grease, and accumulated hand marks from years of contact without lifting paint or damaging plaster. It leaves absolutely no residue behind on the surface. The wall left behind after sugar soap and a rinse is the cleanest possible base for new paint to bond to, and bonding is the whole point of preparation. Sugar soap still exists. It sits at the back of the shelf in DIY shops behind display units of 5-pound branded Trigger spray surface cleaners. Those products frequently contain silicone, which actively prevents new paint from adhering to the surface beneath. Sugar soap was never improved upon. It was simply pushed backwards until most people stopped looking for it and reached for whatever was at eye level instead. Number 2. Dolly Blue in the final rinse water. A small cloth bag of Dolly Blue, a form of synthetic ultramarine dye sold for tuppence and lasting months, dipped and swirled into the final cold rinse water for white laundry before wringing. The water turned the faintest shade of blue. The sheets, shirts, and pillowcases came out brilliant white. This is optical brightening, not bleaching. White fabric yellows over time because the fibers absorb slightly across all visible wavelengths, including blue, and the eye reads the absence of blue as yellow. A trace of blue dye deposited in the fibers compensates for that absorption exactly. The fabric appears whiter than it actually is because the eye is reading it correctly now. This is not a housewife's superstition. This is color physics, documented and understood. It is the identical principle now built into every biological washing powder sold in Britain today, listed on the ingredients panel as optical brightening agents. Manufacturers package and sell that science at 30 times the price of Dolly Blue, inside a formula you cannot separate from the ingredient you actually need. One bag, tuppence, 6 months. The science has not changed in 70 years. If this is the sort of thing you'd like to see more of, subscribing takes 2 seconds and means you won't miss what comes next. And number 1, bicarbonate of soda. 1 yellow box from the corner shop, tuppence, under the sink. It scoured the sink without scratching. It deodorized the bin with a pinch in the bottom before the liner went in. It freshened the carpet between proper cleans. It cleared blocked drains, as covered at number 18. It soothed insect bites as a damp paste. It settled an upset stomach in a glass of water. It polished silver. It removed tea stains from the inside of cups and sweat marks from shirt collars before washing. It rose bread and cakes, combined with an acid. Smothered over a small chip pan fire, it extinguished the flame without water. Water would spread burning fat. It cleaned the outside of the oven without marking the enamel. 1 box, 1 ingredient. Supermarkets now sell 17 distinct cleaning products in a single aisle. Bathroom cleaner, kitchen cleaner, grease remover, lime scale remover, glass cleaner, wood cleaner, oven cleaner, that collectively do less well, cost more, and arrive in plastic that will not be recycled. Your grandmother's cleaning cupboard was sparse because nobody had yet persuaded her that she needed more. That is not nostalgia. That is the thing worth keeping. Try one of these this week: the newspaper on the windows, the eggshells in the decanter, or the bicarbonate down the drain on a Friday night. Then leave a comment and tell me whether your nan did that or whether it surprised you. That is what the comments are for.